Every time you think the Meghan Markle story can't possibly get messier, a new name appears. And this one came from the darkest place imaginable. Not a royal insider, not a gossip magazine, but from behind prison walls. Somewhere in a cold fluorescent cell, Ghislaine Maxwell, the woman at the heart of Jeffrey Epstein's twisted empire, decided to talk. For years, she'd been silent. The world assumed her lips were sealed forever. But then a rumor began to spread that she had started naming names again. And one of those names was Meghan Markle. At first, nobody believed it. Why would Meghan, a duchess, a mother, a global figure, ever be connected to someone like Maxwell? But the whisper didn't stop because this time Maxwell wasn't speaking in riddles. She claimed to have proof, a document, something she supposedly called a CV. Now, when you hear CV, you probably think of a normal resume, acting jobs, volunteer work, charity projects. But according to this supposed statement, this wasn't that kind of document. This was something darker, a record of activities linked to private events and exclusive circles that no one talks about in public. In Maxwell's own words, Meghan was playing the adult game. It's a phrase designed to haunt. It doesn't accuse directly, but it paints an image your mind can't shake. What kind of game? Who was involved? And what did that world look like? For Meghan, whose public life has been built on empowerment, independence, and control, the idea of a hidden past like this is explosive. Because it doesn't just clash with her public image, it shatters it. Now, here's where things start to twist. This wasn't just a story cooked up by tabloids. The mention of Meghan's name appeared in connection with legal documents, real court filings tied to the same circles that brought down Prince Andrew. And at the center of that legal storm was a woman named Virginia Giuffre, the same woman who accused powerful men of unspeakable acts and helped expose Epstein's network to the world. According to Virginia's attorney, Meghan Markle wasn't a stranger. They knew each other not through royal dinners or charity galas, but through overlapping social circles before Meghan ever wore a crown. That's what made her name valuable. Because if Meghan had been present or even nearby during certain events, her testimony could confirm who was there and what really happened behind those doors. For investigators, that kind of insider knowledge is gold. For Meghan, it's a ticking bomb. And here's the part that makes people lean in. The lawyer didn't add her name for drama or clout. Court filings are cold, cautious, deliberate. Every word matters. And when an attorney includes your name, it means they believe you know something worth hearing under oath. This is where the fairy tale cracks. Before Meghan became the Duchess of Sussex, before the palaces, before the interviews, before Megxit, she was an actress hustling in Hollywood, mingling with producers, entrepreneurs, and billionaires who loved being seen with rising stars. That's not unusual in her line of work. But according to the whispers, those same elite circles occasionally overlapped with Epstein's web, where power and pleasure were currency. Now imagine that world colliding with royalty. Imagine the Duchess, who preaches empowerment, suddenly connected, even indirectly, to one of history's darkest scandals. That's the nightmare Meghan's team hoped would never resurface. Because the moment Ghislaine Maxwell dropped her name, it stopped being a rumor. It became a possibility. And the world doesn't need certainty to destroy you. It just needs a story that sounds like it could be true. And that's what this prison whisper became. A story that spread like smoke. Impossible to contain, hinting at a version of Meghan's past that no one has ever seen, but everyone suddenly wants to. When Meghan's name surfaced beside Prince Andrew's, people assumed it was just another royal rumor. But then came that precise phrase from court notes, close companion. Those two words changed everything. Close companion isn't filler language. It's deliberate. It suggests access, familiarity, and time spent behind doors that the public never sees. Not a passing handshake at a fundraiser. Not a quick greeting in a palace hallway. It meant dinners, introductions, conversations, and possibly witnessing things that were never meant for outsiders. Before she was a duchess, Meghan was climbing. She was smart, polished, and very good at appearing in the right rooms. And in those years, Prince Andrew was still a man of influence, a royal who opened doors across London's elite scene. If Meghan had access to him, she had access to everyone. Now, Imagine what that looks like in hindsight. A future duchess orbiting the same circles that would later collapse under the Epstein scandal. A woman building her image in the glow of privilege, while behind that glow, whispers about exploitation were spreading. It's the kind of overlap that turns coincidence into suspicion. And when Maxwell's supposed CV is added to the mix, that overlap feels less accidental, more like a connection that was never meant to be uncovered. If you want to know how someone might behave when the stakes are high, look at what they do when the stakes are small. And for Meghan, the Finding Freedom saga showed the world exactly that. When the royal biography came out, Meghan swore she had nothing to do with it. Her lawyers doubled down, saying she hadn't briefed the authors, hadn't shaped the story. But then came the emails, hundreds of them, proof that she'd quietly fed details to the writers. From private palace moments to lines about her struggles with the Queen's staff, the revelation was simple but devastating. Meghan hadn't told the truth. She didn't just protect her image, she manufactured it. And that discovery set a precedent. If she could bend reality for a book, what might she do when the subject is darker? When her name is linked to Epstein, Maxwell, and a possible federal investigation, people began to notice the pattern, the careful control. The polished answers that sound rehearsed, the calculated pauses in interviews. It wasn't spontaneity, it was strategy. That's why when Maxwell's story leaked, so many didn't ask, is it true? They asked, could she hide it? Because by then, Meghan had already proven she could shape a narrative. And that's more dangerous than any accusation. When accusations this heavy surface, most people fight back hard. They release statements. They threaten lawsuits. They show outrage. Meghan did none of that. No denial. No press release. Just silence. She posted pictures of flowers, launched a lifestyle brand, smiled for the cameras and ignored the storm. But silence in scandals like this isn't calm, it's fuel. It makes people wonder, is she afraid to answer or too confident to care? For months, her team let the whispers swirl. And with every day she stayed quiet, the idea of guilt started to grow roots. Because in the court of public opinion, silence sounds a lot like confirmation. Her defenders claimed she was rising above the drama. But her critics saw calculation. A woman waiting for the noise to fade instead of clearing her name. Either way, that quiet became her loudest statement. And now, every time Maxwell's words resurface, every time a journalist mentions that hidden CV, Meghan's silence becomes part of the story, not the escape from it. Every scandal has a breaking point. And in Meghan's story, that breaking point isn't a person. It's a file. That supposed CV. Imagine it one day through a leak, a whistleblower, or a court subpoena. That file surfaces. Even if it's exaggerated, even if only part of it is real, the damage, there's no safe move left on the board. And that's why people say this isn't just rumor. It's checkmate waiting to happen. For Meghan, image has always been currency. She sells poise, compassion, empowerment. But when a story like this enters the bloodstream, every photo, every smile, every speech starts to look staged. Because the human mind doesn't separate rumor from memory. Once you've heard something shocking, you see it everywhere, even when it's not there. That's the trap. Even if she's innocent, perception rewrites her story. Every past decision gets re-examined. Her friendship circles, her Hollywood contacts, her quick marriage to a prince. Suddenly, it all looks like strategy, not romance. And the cruel truth, perception often outlives proof. A single image, a leaked document, a headline, a phrase like playing the adult game can shadow someone forever. That's the real punishment. Not conviction, but belief. Right now, Meghan stands between two worlds. One is the empire she built. Brands, podcasts, glossy interviews. The other is the past she buried. Whispers, secrets, unanswered questions. Her team continues to post curated moments, jars of jam, soft lighting, scripted calm. But behind that filter, there's the constant hum of risk. Because if this supposed file exists, she can't outrun it forever. She spent years mastering the art of image, of turning every setback into sympathy, every rumor into branding. But some stories can't be rebranded. You can't outmarket the shadows that come from Epstein's world. And that's the crossroads. Does she finally confront the whispers or keep pretending they don't exist because silence might protect her today, but tomorrow it could destroy her completely? From the beginning, this wasn't just a royal feud or a tabloid tale. It was a collision between two women from opposite ends of power. Ghislaine Maxwell speaking from prison and Meghan Markle living behind palace gates. One lost everything. The other built an empire out of image. But now their names share the same sentence. And that's all it takes to blur the line between guilt and rumor. The supposed CV remains unseen, locked somewhere in whispers and fear. But its idea alone has power. The power to make people question who Meghan really was before the crown, before the cameras, before the carefully edited story she tells the world. Maybe it's all made up. Maybe it's half truth. Or maybe it's the part of her life that was never meant to see daylight. Because that's how scandals work. They don't need proof to destroy you. They just need persistence. And Maxwell's words, even from a prison cell, refuse to die. So the question isn't if Meghan's past will resurface. It's how much of it the world will get to see. And when that moment comes, when the light finally hits whatever's been hidden, her legacy won't just be tested. It will be rewritten. Because truth, no matter how long it hides, always finds its way back to the surface. And when it does, it doesn't just expose you. It defines you.